Assalamu alaikum, respected brothers and sisters. Welcome to our channel today. We will delve into the holy month of Ramadan will be observed this year according to a new set of guidelines that have been issued by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. The new regulations include a prohibition on filming or broadcasting of prayers that take place within mosques, and a prohibition on mosques collecting financial donations for the organization of meals for iftar, which is the evening meal that breaks the fast for Muslims during the month of Ramadan. Dr. Abdul Latif bin Abdul Aziz Al Sheikh, Minister of Islamic Affairs, Dawah and Guidance Sheikh, has issued and disseminated a 10-point paper in Arabic that outlines the necessary preparations for mosques and worshippers. The text was written in Arabic, according to Samid Hamid, the managing director of International Interest. The English version was quickly shared, and even though the translation is awkward, it makes it abundantly evident that the Prime Minister of the Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, wants to place restrictions on the month of Ramadan. The limitations placed on praying and performing du'as. The first two considerations are easy to understand. The imam should not be late or be missing, and the azan, which is the call for prayer, should be given at the appropriate time. However, the first signs of limitations start to appear when we look at number 3. The sentence structure of the translated version may be confusing, but it makes it very apparent that prayers should not be very long and should be abbreviated instead. According to Hamid's explanation, point number 4 is an addition to the proverb that demands the dua to likewise be shorter, and imams must stick to generic supplications. Bin Salman has been taking steps to replace imams who make more continuous supplications, such as on topics about Palestine and condemnation of Israel, with whom he is mulling about the possibility of normalizing relations. As an unmistakable signal that Bin Salman is aiming to tone down the language used by imams and utilize the religious platforms to either reinforce his wider Vision 2030 objectives or restrict any criticism of them. Bin Salman's appointment of Muhammad al-Isa to conduct the khutbah during Hajj at Arafat was a clear indication that Bin Salman is seeking to tone down the language used by imams. Sheikh Dr. Muhammad bin Abdul Karim al-Isa's appointment as the leader of the khutbah was a clear sign from the Saudi Arabia regarding its attitude towards normalization with Israel, according to Ahad Yari, an expert on Arab affairs for Channel 12. Yari believes that this was a signal sent by Saudi Arabia. Limits are placed on the types of books that can be read. In the year 2021, Bin Salman made changes to the curricula that were taught in schools throughout the kingdom. He issued a proclamation that drastically cut back the time spent studying the Quran, Islamic studies, and the Arabic language. According to rule number 5, imams are expected to lay a significant emphasis on reading some helpful literature according to curriculars which control that. This should serve as a stern warning to Hamid coming from Bin Salman. According to Hamid, academics who have voiced opposition to this action have been put behind bars. This instruction might seem insignificant at first glance, even though it might seem like it's just about books. Its seriousness can only be understood when placed in the context of how Bin Salman is reshaping Islamic education. This is not a regulation or a suggestion in any way. It serves as a warning to adhere to the increasingly anti-Islamic line of thinking. The prayers cannot be broadcast in any way, shape, or form. During the holy month of Ramadan, people from all over the world travel to the Holy Land to attain one of the many mosques there. But there won't be much longer for that to continue. Rule number 6 states that it's strictly forbidden to transmit live coverage of the people those are offering prayer to a higher power. It's interesting to notice that this does not apply to Mecca and Medina, although one may claim that this is done for religious reasons. Hamid stated that it's not for religious reasons, but rather to prevent the response that bin Salman faced when he tried to adopt this last year. Hamid's argument was based on the fact that the criticism was religious. Bin Salman would put an end to the call to prayer in both of the city's mosques if he could. However, the outrage that he received the year before when it was suggested that he was ready to do so was so great that it's unlikely that he will wish to provoke it again. This regulation is in line with a policy that was enacted in 2021, which called for a reduction in the volume of loudspeakers being used in public spaces. According to Hamid, all of this is a part of the bin Salman's attempt to silence Islam and bring more attention to his ambitions for Vision 2030. It's more about bin Salman's vision for Saudi Arabia as one where Islam is no longer at the center of the Saudi Arabia of the Saudi identity, the sources explain. The purpose of these regulations is to lower the volume of Islam in the kingdom by building on previous laws that prohibit mosques from using loudspeakers for the recitation of the Quran and place restrictions on the time and manner in which the call to prayer is broadcast. The new regulations are a direct result of the reforms that Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman implemented in the educational system, in which he dramatically cut the number of hours that students spent studying Islam, the Quran, and Islamic studies. The itikaf precepts. During the last 10 days of Ramadan, Muslims observe itikaf by withdrawing from society and focusing entirely on worshipping Allah at a mosque. Imams must gather information on those performing itikaf, rule number 7. The rule makes sense at first glance, but as Hamid points out, it's not about gathering information, but rather what the government will do with it. In theory, the rule makes sense. Those making itikaf at a mosque should be identified. However, there's a growing crackdown on religious expression and widespread imprisonment of the religious leaders. As a result, the issue is not the data collection itself, but rather what the Saudi government is likely to do with it. Hamid noted that the former dictator of Tunisia, Zainul Abidin bin Ali, and the Soviet Union both utilized this phrase to create lists of zealous Muslims who were subsequently monitored and harassed. It's unclear how this data will be put to use when renowned ulama are being jailed for speaking out. Suppressing charity and iftar at the mosque. The Prophet of Allah was quoted by Zayd bin Khalid al-Juhani as saying, "Whoever gives food for a fasting person to break his fast, he will have a reward like theirs, without that detracting from their reward in the slightest." Sunan Ibn Majah. Muslims base their contribution to the mosque's iftar on this tale. Following Rule 8 and 9, mosques are not permitted to accept donations or host iftar meals. Iftar is a meal served after sunset in mosques all over the world. To help someone break their fast, a sheet is spread out. Some dates and liquids are offered. According to the regulation, a similar vision must be built in the courtyard. Hamid thinks the government is trying to control the mood that Ramadan brings to mosques and public spaces by doing this. These regulations aim to limit the visibility of Ramadan in public and prevent individuals from gathering outside their houses to observe the holy month. Bin Salman has also issued an order stating that non-fasting individuals should not be chastised if they are seen to be eating in public. The final Regulation 10, prohibiting parents from bringing their children to mosque, serves to enforce this principle. According to Hamid, this law is reminiscent of the Soviet Union's prohibition on minors attending mosques. Milli Chronicle Media London director Zahak Tanveer disagrees. These regulations, in his opinion, have only served to sow dissent among the ranks of the extremists, supporting his belief that bin Salman is attempting to water down Islam. The media regularly uses the label extremist to describe those who uphold Islam in its purest form. The resistance against the regulations and Vision 2030. Muslims all around the world have reacted with fury and resistance in response to the restrictions. Sheikh Imad al-Mubaid, the Imam of the King Abdul Aziz Mosque in Dammam, was the most recent person to respond negatively to the statement. Although bin Salman's regulations won't be affected in any way by this development, Hamid is concerned about how bin Salman would respond to the situation. Bin Salman has been swift in cracking down on any backlash and dissent, with swaths of critics, imams, scholars, and activists being thrown into prison, with some facing death sentences for their criticism. The problem is not that there has been no blowback. The problem is the ruthless manner in which bin Salman has dealt with it. According to Hamid, it's abundantly evident that bin Salman wants to remove Islam from the public domain and move it into the private sphere to confine it to the provinces of Mecca and Medina. Because he is completely preoccupied with Vision 2030, other measures that aim to snuff out the light of Islam in the Holy Lands may be implemented. The year of the creation of the Saudi Arabia has been modified from the year in which Muhammad al-Saud and Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab agreed to re-establish Islam to 1727, which is the year in which Muhammad al-Saud came to be chief of his tribe. Previously, the date of the founding of the Saudi Arabia was considered to be the year in which they reached their agreement. In other words, bin Salman has been working towards the goal of transforming the establishment of the kingdom into a tribal and nationalist endeavor. Bin Salman is making steady progress towards his goal of isolating Islam as an influence that's confined to personal matters, rather than the one that's used to define the political and legal identity of the state. He is going this by gradually removing Islam from the public life. Surah Kahf, fear not. Allah is always with you. Give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more.